Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for checking out today's episode of Storytellers Mag. And I've got a great special guest with me today, James Nettles, a.k.a. Jim. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to hang out and chat with you, Adam.
Dude, I love hanging out and talking with you. Like, right before the show, everybody, we were, short little intro here. James, or Jim, okay, but you'll see his stuff is also James Nettles, but Jim is like a really astute businessman, and he and I, we'll get off into these little topics about business and talking about, ops stuff, because, both of us love that kind of stuff, and so it's a lot of fun for me, and I know that you like talking about, we were just talking about, checking out metrics and stuff like that for podcasting and all that. And I get geeked up about that kind of stuff, and I know you do too. So welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me on. I mean, like I say, it's always fun to hang out and talk. I think we're going to get to talk about the fun stuff today instead of the kind of the usual stuff that gets a little...
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. On my other show and shows that you do, we talk with people a lot about craft, and we talk a lot about the nuts and the bolts of it, and so I wanted to do something where we're talking about the fun side of it, the fun side of storytelling, and I know it sounds crazy that I would say that the ops side of story crafting and telling is fun for me. But it's kind of like building stuff out of Lego bricks. I like building things, and I like making stuff. And I feel like you're a maker and a doer yourself.
Well, I mean, all of it's got the parts to it that are a lot of fun, and all of it has those parts to it that you look at and go, "Really, I've got to do this again." Okay, great, let's go do this.
Yeah, that is
no matter what. There's always those parts that are, I'm off to make the donuts. I got to go make the donuts.
Oh, yeah. That 5 a.m. grind. Oh, my gosh. So, Jim, you have a series called Author Essentials, and then you also have your own fiction series of works. And you also, talking about, the fun stuff, this year you have been, a major part of all of these different shows that these conventions are helping put on for people because they can't have an in-person convention. And you do you helped founded a Continual, and I believe you did stuff with Multiverse and Dragon Con, and so you've been doing a lot of cool and fun stuff this year. So can you talk about some of that?
Sure. So I by trade, I am, while I get paid, I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of nonfic writing, copywriting, articles. We do ad content, stuff like that. So, and I've got a services company. Actually, we've got a couple of them. But the other side of it is, because I'm an old tech hound and everything else, with a couple of good friends, Gail Z. Martin and John Hartness, we've been playing around with an idea for a number of years about, hey, how do we create something so that, A, we can stay in touch with friends that we see a couple of times a year, or maybe even once a year, and number two, how do we talk to people from around the world? And we've been playing around with ideas and had been talking about it for a while. And then when conventions got locked down and everything else, Gail called one morning and says, "Okay, I did a thing. Are you guys in?" And it's like, sure. And we didn't even have to ask what it was, because we pretty well knew. And because a lot of my life is business continuity, I knew when we started seeing this thing coming in and locking everything down, it was like, yeah, this is going to go for a while. Yeah. So we pulled in and we started Continual. I mean, we started with a logo, because Gail had gone and gotten Natanya Barron, who is also a fantastic artist and just a wonderful writer, had gotten Natanya to do a logo for us. And we had no idea what we were going to do with it, but 3 weeks later we dropped our first show. So now we're 7 months in. We've dropped more than 100 hours worth of programming. We're now starting, our 7th or 8th series that we're running. we've got one series that's now dropped 33 episodes. We've got another series that's dropped 31. We've talked, I think, about 300 people. So, when we started dropping that, I'm also one of the directors for Con Carolinas, and I said, well, we're kind of building this toy that we're playing with over here. So we wound up, working with Con Carolinas, which was one of the first, real digital conventions. A couple of other people were playing with it too. And then,
oh yeah, that's right. They were like the first ones y'all did, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that was the first one we worked with, and so I wound up becoming the digital programming director for Con Carolinas. And we had the plan there of doing some stuff mixed. Going forward, at least some of it will be digital, no matter what. So yeah, it's been a fun year because one of the things that's happened out of this is we've now had a number of shows that were international. We've been talking to people from Europe, we've been talking to people in Australia, New Zealand. These are all people that I wouldn't, in all likelihood, even though I've got readers in Australia and New Zealand and some of these other places, I've done a couple of shows with some of them over time, but not a whole lot. Now I get to go talk to authors all over the place. We get to talk to creators, we get to talk to showrunners, we talk to actors. We've had a whole big thing going on with the Supernatural TV show that in Gail's space. I mean, it's a lot of fun. And so then when we started doing all of this, friends of ours from all these conventions that we're used to doing in person called and said, hey, we see y'all doing a thing. Can we ask some questions? And, we're always here to help. I mean, for everybody that's done so much for us over the years, we're trying to kind of give some of that back to those conventions and events and things like that. So it's been a lot of fun, but I would be lying if I also said it wasn't a tremendous amount of work at times.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I'm really impressed with how much y'all have been doing this year, and of course it's a team, but you actually MC or you host a lot of the shows too. And like, for example, the show that we did with the Valhalla Books, the book launch is one of those things that you've been doing too with the publishers and stuff, because a lot of indie publishers, small print publishers, they get in front of readers by going to conventions, because people that go to these kind of conventions are the kind of readers that, just like you and me, we like this kind of stuff. We like comic books and, sci-fi and fantasy and horror and, those kind of things. And so I really appreciate the fact that, you did that and that you're doing that, not just, just for people that but also other, people that are out there. You're giving them an opportunity to kind of get in front of a pretty decent sized audience. I think the group has got like 13 or 1,400 people or something like that now.
We hit about 1,335, I think, yesterday, something like that. We're growing at about 3.5% to 4% a week.
That's what I love about you, Jim. You're like, I think we're about exactly 1,335 as of yesterday by 4:35 p.m. I'm like, that's what I love about you, man. You're the numbers guy, dude. That's one of the things I love about you. It's like, the numbers. So, I like how you put it too. You're like, I think we're kind of in the ballpark of 1,335, but yeah. I love it.
There's always a little plus.
You always have a sense of humor. Yeah, I love it. That's one of the things I think is funny. But yeah, man, going back to that, I mean, that's a pretty good sized audience.
Well, we've done that in 7 months with zero ad spend. It's 100% been organic from us getting out there. Obviously, it started off with, the people we know and friends and things like that, because that's the first people you can call when you're trying to do something new and go and say, hey, want to come play with our toys? We know you're sitting there. Yeah. We know you're bored. Come on, come play with our toys. Come play with our toys. And now what's fantastic is we've kind of crossed that line to where we're doing much bigger names, much bigger shows. People are coming to us and saying, hey, so how do I come play? And so it's being a tremendous amount of fun. And like I say, again, it's work, but you can, if you're not enjoying it, it's kind of hard to slog through. I mean, there's a number of things, skill sets that I've had to go, to say brush up on might be an understatement. I mean, because apparently I've got a little bit of latent wannabe filmmaker. Not that I'm good at it by any means, but doing like the trailers and doing our headers and trailers and some of the video editing, and we've got a couple other people on the team that are doing more and more editing, and so it's a lot of fun and getting to go play with it. But it's all about storytelling. I mean, at the end of the day, any interview is the story. I mean, even if it's your story, even if you're talking craft, it's are you having fun with it? We're sitting in the middle of NaNoWriMo month, and I know a lot of people that are stressing over, I didn't get my word count, I didn't get my numbers. I'm like, you're kind of missing the point. You can use this to develop good habits and all that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, a large part of Nano is figuring out, is this something you really want to do and play with, or is this something you're just doing for yourself? And either way, you'd better be enjoying what you're doing.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. That's the idea, the premise behind this show, is to talk with storytellers about the fun side of storytelling. Talking to creative people, and that, I feel like that's a topic that gets overlooked a lot, because there are so many people out there. Like NaNoWriMo is a great example of this, but there are so many people out there who have the idea that they want to be a writer, or they want to be a novelist or whatever, and it's almost kind of like they fall in love with the idea and not the work. When they find out there's a lot of work involved in it, they're like, oh well, I've got an idea for a book, or I've got an idea for a movie or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's great. Some people, that that's just where it dies. It's just an idea, But I agree with you. I think that you have to have fun, you have to enjoy, because I'll tell you all, writing, not necessarily like the published journalist work, but doing stuff for myself as a small print publisher or as an indie author, it's the most amount of work I've ever done in my life for the least amount of pay. And that's because I haven't been selling a ton of books, but I love it. And I just, like every day I work on it, and I know you do the same. I mean, I see, like, you're always, showing stuff that you're doing, putting stuff out there. And, I kind of, one of the things we were kind of, a couple weeks ago, y'all, we were talking about, like, I've been in a rut this year with my own personal stories and stuff that I want to publish, because I've been doing so much with this anthology. And I think you were kind of like in the same boat where, you got some stuff on the back burner, you got some stuff that you've been kind of mowing through, and, so what keeps you going with that? Like, what kind of brings you back around to, like, your own storytelling?
It's easier to kill people on the page than to get rid of the bodies.
Okay.
No, it's fun. I mean, so,
yeah.
And I mean, even if it's nonfiction, doesn't mean it can't be fun. But I mean, like last year, I've got an updated version. The second story was supposed to come out this year, and have got some revisions in it. But we're in holiday season. I'd been playing around for 10 years with doing a Krampus story. And a couple of times
nice.
I was like, oh, Krampus is hot this year. Well, and I guess the story's not ready. I've been playing with it. Well, then I came up with the idea of a trilogy, kind of, new adult type trilogy around the Krampus and everything else. Well, the first one came out last year, and I was sitting down, and one of the great things is, because I have some stuff go through publishers, and I have some stuff that goes out for me indie. Indie means I can get it out fast, and I can also fix or change things that I'm like, oh yeah, that probably didn't work that way. Or somebody, you're working on the next book in a series, and you're like, I probably should have done X. You've got the ability to go out and make some changes to the story. Well, while I'm not really making major changes, there's a couple of edits and things that came through, or a couple of things that some readers came back and said, hey, I really didn't understand X or Y. So, a little more exposition on some of those things. It's not big changes, but it's going to print this year. And
nice.
But, I mean, that story about Krampus was so much fun to do. So the premise, the premise of it is, and really what a lot of it is about, is that idea of family angst and that stress of everybody getting together at the holidays and, all the stuff that goes along. You love it, it's fun, but there's also stress. So, I wrote a story about a 10-year-old girl that lives in Atlanta, who is a gymnast. She's active, strong imagination, has the big rivalry going with her brother's best friend that lives behind the house. And Grandma is coming from the old country and, bringing a bunch of stuff with her. And one of the things that happens to come along is some family legacy. And you get to play with that idea of seeing Mom just stressed out and regressing back to where she's the little girl stressing about, oh my God, my mother's coming.
Okay.
So you get all these fun parts, but at the same time, then while I've always found stuff like the Elf on a Shelf dolls kind of creepy, and I've joked about that and had ideas, and some of which were probably rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. But I came up with my own set called the Ned and Nancy dolls. So they're Ned and Nancy in the Nook.
Ned and Nancy in the Nook. I love that.
So they're Ned and Nancy in the Nook. So Ned and the Nook's been around for years. So this year the new product they introduced was Nancy. They've got their own holiday special. And she's like, yeah, Mom, these things are kind of creepy. Well, the fun part of it is her dad is part of the company that makes those.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's all these little things that tie in together. And, how much more fun can you possibly have than at the end of the day having a 10-year-old girl get to go trash Santa's workshop?
Oh, yeah. I think that's one of the cool things about storytelling is that you're pretty much the one in the driver's seat until the characters take over, and then they tell you what they're going to do and not going to do. You're like, hey, Ned, I want you to go over here and I want you to do this, and Ned's like, that's just not going to happen, boss. Sorry.
Well, the fun part of it was, and so Teresa Glover, she's a writer. She's also a writer. She does some editing and stuff for me, and she helped me really tune some parts of this book. And there was things she was like, that's rather creepy. I know that was meant to be creepy, but it's funny too. And she goes, yeah, you have a sick sense of humor. It's funny, but that's creepy. But we can ramp that up just a little bit more if you do this.
Yeah. That
is
fun.
It's creepy.
That's the weird thing about having like a dark sense of humor. It's like other folks that have a dark sense of humor, they know that you're just being funny, and then people that don't, they're like, is something wrong here? Do I need an adult? Do I need some help? It just cracks me up, man. I love like horror comedy. I love like sci-fi comedy. I love parody, type stuff, and I love any kind of fun little story like like that. And like I have a friend named Rebecca Hamrick. I think you might know her too.
Yep.
Her pen name is R.M. Hamrick. She's here in Savannah, and she writes this series of stories called The Adelan Adventures, and it's just a funny little sci-fi series. They're novellas. They're about I think 50 to 60 pages or something like that usually, and they're just a fun little lighthearted series. And I enjoy that kind of stuff because it's a little bit of levity for from the everyday stress of your normal grind of just living life. Life's great, but I love like being able to read a nice little lighthearted, funny story like that or whatever. So it's pretty cool. When's that coming out? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Alex, the ebook is out and available right now. It's called The Krampus Clause, James P. McDonald, which is one of the names I write fiction under. So it's called The Krampus Clause. It's got a Krampus on the front cover in front of the Christmas tree. And like I say, it's out and it's available right now in ebook, but the print should be coming out here hopefully by Black Friday. We'll see.
Nice. On the print book for the Devil's Due, I actually had it ready to go, and then I made some changes to it, and then this week actually the final retail print version is available, and I was like so happy because it was like a year's worth of work that I put into this, over a year's worth of work. But it's so cool to see a book like your own book in hand,
Well, it's just been, like I say, it's been a hugely fun thing. I really wish the second book had come out this year. The second book, she's going to be 13, and the third book, she's 16. and I've got both of them are outlined. The second book is fairly well into draft status.
Nice.
But oddly enough, there's just been something this year. I don't know what it is that I just haven't gotten it finished.
Right.
But next year I've got a few other things that are coming out. I've got another new series. Right now, Perspective Press is trying to do the. It's not the Kickstarter for it. It's I forget which funding source they're using. But it's Off the Beaten Path 4. I've got a feature novelette in that kicks off a new series.
I saw something about that on Facebook. That's the anthology for charity or something like that.
Well, no, it's not a charity anthology, but it is a new anthology, and I've done plenty of charity anthologies. But
I thought I just thought that was one of the ones that they were doing some kind of a relief fund or something like that. I know you posted about something recently like that, but maybe I was just getting my signals crossed up there.
Well, I post a few things.
Just a few.
But just a few. And so Off the Beaten Path 4 is my novelette in that, and this may kick off a new series. Originally, it was written for another collection or another anthology from Perspective Press, and it wound up going into this. But it's basically I've got for lack of a better terms, he is the agent of the powers that be. Drives an old beat-up '50s ambulance that's somewhat sentient. It has the ability to revive a dead body if you throw it in the back, but the body can't get far away. And he's got a pet hellhound, and they've kind of had a rough relationship for the first 20 years, but now it's kind of shaken out. And it's a bit of a creepy. This particular story set in Mississippi, but I mean you get to do fun things like you throw the body in the back, they wake up, they freak out, they try to run, the body falls over, flops around, he brings them back closer to the ambulance, you put them back, and after a while he's like, look, this is not funny anymore. Can we talk now?
Right. Yeah. Was it like a detective type story, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a noir type of thing. So it's a noir short story. And originally I just wrote it as this could be fun. Well, a couple of the things that happen in it set it up. I'm like, oh yeah, this could be a fun little series of short stories to do. So I'm probably going to do some more with it after this one comes out. I've got a piece that is in an unyet announced collection on fairy faith and mythology in film that I think is it'll be out sometime next year. I'm guessing second quarter. I haven't got the title and stuff for that yet from the publisher.
Let me ask you, Jim, not to kind of switch gears there, but talking about that, what are some of the elements of a good story that captivate you and that keep you watching or reading or whatever?
It's characters. Because I don't have to like anybody in a book to be interested in and keep reading it. I want people that are interesting. I want characters that are interesting and generally ramping things up. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like, trying to watch TV, trying to watch a movie. If I get bored, which can happen pretty quick, if I can tell you the entire story in the first 30 or 45 seconds, then my habit's going to then fall over into, okay, let me break down how they tell the story and see how right I am. Well, that means you don't get immersed into it. But what will pull me in is, are the characters interesting? Are they fun? Are they good and devious? If they're cardboard, and granted I've written some that were cardboard myself, but if they're boring, okay, that's not going to hold me long. If the characters are fun, and I am a big fan of things that are a bit obtuse and a little bit more. I like the comedy. I like things that are dark humor. I like things that are a little bit on the obtuse end. But that's me.
Yeah, me too. I think there's a lot of us out there that like weird stuff and strange stuff. I mean, just something that's just different. Show me something different.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if I'm picking up the same thing in the same book. I mean, obviously there's tropes, there's characteristics to the characters. Show me something fun, show me something different, show me something that's just have something that pulls me in. I mean, even if I'm reading something that's hard and serious and dark, show me somebody that's got more than one facet to their character, and show me somebody that's that's a little bit fun and a little bit twisted.
Yeah, a little off the beaten path. I mean, like I think of like the first thing that came to mind was Beetlejuice. Like just a strange oddball character. Michael Keaton. I mean, like if you talk about performances, whatever. If you look at that performance of that movie, I feel like, especially a couple of years later, he did. I think it was later, wasn't it? He did the Batman. He did the 1989 Batman. Can't remember what year Beetlejuice came out, but
Beetlejuice, I want to say, was 80, 85, 86.
Yeah,
somewhere like that. Too bad there's not some grand technology that would tell us that sort of thing, but.
I know. We can always look it up, right? If I do that though, right now, it'll disconnect me. But I just like stuff like that. I think that's one of the reasons why I like Tim Burton. I like guys like Douglas Adams. Folks like that. One of the reasons why I was talking about Rebecca's stuff is it's fun, it's new, it's different. And I don't. One of the things I don't like are, for example. It's pretty rampant in the comic book industry with the big publishers where they revamp and they restart the series over. Like, oh, this is number one. It's number one. It's number one. And then they'll say like, oh, it's a legacy number. Like, oh, it's number one, but legacy is like really 872. And I don't like that. But
you get go and say, we're just going to restart the whole thing. Yeah. There's a certain thing to rebooting. I mean, with the things that we're looking at today, there is something about going in and rebooting series to bring them up to the current standards. I mean, there is some.
Here's an example I think that worked really well for a reboot was when they rebranded the X-Men in the 70s. They were doing reprints and all that, and then they came out and they said, boom, here's a whole brand new team, yada, yada, yada. But even that, that got a little old. And I think with reading, I mean, like, we only have so much time in the day, right? For me, for example, everybody has 24 hours. But when I say that, we only have so much time in the day that we're going to spend on doing the things that we do. And when I'm trying to invest into reading a book or, watching a new series or watching a different movie or whatever, I hate to say it, but I'm looking for something that is just going to, I can follow along. Like you said, that they're not cardboard characters. Most of the time you can kind of figure out already what the plot is or whatever. But I love stuff with a little twist. I mean, like what you're talking about with your Krampus story. It's like, okay, well, the Ned and Nancy and the Nook. Here's a little twist, and there's the old country, and I might be getting my signals crossed here a little bit, but it just seems like a different take on a Christmas story, pretty much, and it's added a little bit of flavor and some fun.
It is. I mean, Darren Kennedy, a good friend of mine, just released Carol that is kind of a re-envisioning of A Christmas Carol. We all have an opportunity to add our flavor and our touch.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there's certain things that what's important is story. Story is what ties all of us together as people. Whether you're sitting around the campfire or you're sitting there at, dinner table, we shifted everything from sitting around and telling the stories and keeping stuff in the family and the history to where we're watching TV to see the stories that other people are telling. Right. I'm a storyteller. I want you to buy my stories and all that kind of good stuff, but I want to hear other people's stories too. I want to. It's the stuff that's fun and there's still aspects to it you have to look at, but I mean, there's plenty of events I do where if you get to go hang out and tell stories and there's a certain degree of going out and reminiscing with old friends at an event going, oh, do you remember that time you went and did X?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't want to talk about
man.
that again. Remember? No, you didn't want to talk about that. We still think that's funny.
I got one for you, man. I've got one. You just reminded me. There was this little convention that I went to, and a buddy and I, we went to this little burger joint down the road, and we stopped in, and I was driving, I parked my car. We're sitting there eating, and there's a bag. Like, I look over, and there's this little plastic bag on my car, and I'm like, where the heck did this plastic bag come from? And my buddy's like, oh, it might be like that song or whatever, whatever. So this little old lady comes in there, and she starts barking, and she goes, "You forgot my ketchup. You forgot my ketchup. I want my ketchup." Like no chill at all, right? And so my buddy and I were sitting there eating, and she's like standing like next to our table yelling at these people because we're kind of by the door. And I swear, she goes back out to the car, right? She picks this plastic bag up off of my car, and then she gets into her Cadillac. And oh my God, my buddy and I were like, "Oh, look at this. Your car is practically a table. You got this little Hyundai. I've got a Cadillac. Who is more important? I didn't get my ketchup. I had to set my bag down. That's where it went." And we just died laughing. So like every time we talk now, it's like, your car is practically a table. It's just one of those little inside jokes. I always die laughing because like weird stuff like that happens at cons, man. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, just some of the fun and amazing things that happen at conventions, or just events, conventions, or even just having friends over at the house to sit around and talk. I mean, that's story is the fun part of it. I mean, if you're going in and remembering, and I mean, I traveled for a living for a long time. When you live in hotels and airports and all that sort of stuff, you get to see interesting people doing interesting things for questionable motivations. And so there's a long list of things there. You're like, I'm sitting in the bar at San Diego Airport, and I watch them start to pat a guy down and start pulling out stacks of bills from the guy's pants in front of the metal detector and outside. Gee, this guy's going to have a long day. I wonder where he was running that money to. You get to see things like that. Or, the book that I've sold the most of, which is still one of my favorites, and I'm working on the next one in it, is a part of a series, Longbow Files. It's a murder mystery. Somebody's killing gnomes and turning people into garden statues. I will say phrase right there at a convention in the front of a panel room, and I will have 3 people go, "Take my money now." And I have. And you want to watch a moderator just kind of turn their head and go, "Can this wait?" Nope, they have money.
And I've got a pen, and I'm going to autograph their book.
But I mean, the story behind that was I'd spent 5 days at Writers Police Academy, which is a lot of law enforcement professionals, psychology professionals, technology professionals, teaching you about the aspects of law enforcement and to be used in writing. And so it used to be in Greensboro, North Carolina, not that far from me here. Well, the year I managed to finally get in, because it sells out very quickly, was the first year it was in Wisconsin. So this meant flying to Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going to this place in Wisconsin, great facility. And, I'm from the South. I know how to blow things up and use a weapon. So I spent most of my time in the abnormal psychology classes and some of those sorts of things. And so after that, for 4 days, I'm on the flight home, and I've kind of got this thing floating in the back of my head going, okay, I don't really write murder mysteries. I mean, I use a lot of these aspects in my writing and whatnot. I'm like, how do I turn this into a business expense? And so I get home, and there's a little box sitting on the front step, and I take it in the house, and I open it up, and it's something I had forgotten I'd ordered. And it was from ThinkGeek, and it's a little gnome statue that's, he's got this mad grin on his face. He's swinging a Tommy gun, and it says, "Say hello to my little friend." Oh, and nice. I just busted out laughing, and I said, "Oh, a murder mystery where somebody's killing gnomes and turning them into garden statues."
Oh, that's awesome.
That's where that story came from.
That is so awesome. I love that. Oh my gosh, we used to have a convention here that they did for like 7 years called Gnome Con, and it was a sci-fi fantasy convention, gaming type convention, and I love that convention, man. I think there's a whole cult following around like gnomes and like nomenclature, and that was a little pun there. So if you like that, you can use it. I didn't create it though.
I'm staring at one. I mean, I get gnomes. When I say this is kind of I get gnomes from all over the place. I am staring at one of my most current gnomes, which is a Halloween gnome. So it's a gnome wearing a witch's costume with big flapping bat ears, and it's sitting here right to the side of me. When I'm at the house in Charlotte, the bookcase behind me has got gnomes hidden all throughout it, which have been gifts from friends.
That's
or
crazy.
fans, I mean, it's funny. You'll be at a convention and somebody all of a sudden appear with, "I brought you this." I'm like, "Wow, thank you." And then like, "Yeah, I read the book." I'm like, I'm sitting there going, but it's one of the things I will do at a convention every time. If I see somebody dressed as a gnome, I will sign and give them a book and take a picture of them holding the book. And you will see some people that are really confused, but they're like, "Okay, sure. I'll take the free book." And I'll post up a picture of the gnome holding a gnome book.
Oh no way! That is so beta. I love it. Like an author hanging out with his gnomies. That's so cool. Man,
okay, that's one I may have to steal. But
a man and his gnomies. There we go.
Well, maybe that's what I need to call my reader group is the gnomies.
There you go. That's perfect, man. I love it. Me and my gnomies. I love it, man. Actually, I've got a couple of the Gnome Con shirts. I have to send you some pictures of it, but I used to be on staff with them, and it was such a great convention and so much fun. We have kind of run over on this episode, so I really appreciate you being here with me, Jim. I'm gonna have to have you back for sure. Where can people check out your work?
The easiest place to get a hold of me is jamespnettles.com. That'll link you to the Jim McDonald site, which is the fiction me. If you are a writer or you're interested in being a writer or in the creative business side of things, it's authoressentials.net. AuthorEssentialsWorkshops.com will be back up shortly. We're moving platforms. And if you want to come hang out and see writers or creators and the new comics track and some of this stuff, it's continualconvention.com. Will get you to all of our different links.
That is so awesome. I really appreciate you being on the show today, Jim, and thanks a lot, man.
Anytime. As you can tell, I'm happy to come and talk about whatever happens to float across my head.
Well, I'm glad to call you one of my gnomies too, bro.
I appreciate it. Same here, because I mean it's all like I always love hanging out and chatting with you, All
right, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening today, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.